Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Running Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah, and today I'm sharing some unprecedented news that I have really not shared anywhere else except you guys. So you guys you're going to be the first ones to know. This is hot off the press, and let's start with a little backstory before I get into it. So, as you know, if you follow me on social media, you have listened to the podcast. You know that I have dealt with right-sided hip symptoms for a long period of time. So spring of 2020, I just started to develop this achiness into my hip. Over time, it really transpired into a labral tear, which is kind of like, I'm going to say I'm a primary low back person. Like my low back is the thing that actually propagates a lot of my symptoms, even though I do have labral tear on my hip. And this has really just been discovered through physical therapy, that the low back was kind of like a bigger deal than the labral tear. And I just do better with treating the low back as opposed to my hip. I have many podcasts on my personal story and would love to link those in the show notes. But basically, I put off doing anything for, anything like serious and consistent for like 6 months. I was like kind of just rehabbing myself, not really being consistent with it. Going to PT, I actually got a ton better, like really found that it was my low back that was really helpful to kind of focus on. And that was what really helped my hip overcome its symptoms. And then I plateaued at about 6 months into PT and was back to running, but not back to running to the caliber that I wanted. I love running like 6 to 8 miles. And I was really only running like 20 minutes comfortably, maybe 4 miles once a week. But if I did anything around that, it was just really sore for my hip. So I actually started to do what is now the Empower Hip program. I really kept my exercises very targeted and specific to my hip. And then I also incorporated running into my Return to Run program, which is actually mind-blowing. And I just created like a very progressive system that allowed me to not just run when I felt good and stop when I didn't, and do my exercises when I felt good and stop when I didn't. But it really allowed me to like stair step up to the progress that I had wanted to do for myself, which was first like getting back to those 6 to 8 miles, and then it was a half marathon, and then it was 250Ks, and now life is crazy, and I'm not in a season of racing, and I love to run consistently and do long runs on the weekends, and that is also comfortable for me. But big news is that my other side is now starting to show signs and symptoms of maybe a labral tear, or just maybe I don't know. I don't know this specifically, but like I would not be surprised if I have hip dysplasia, specifically on my right side. Like I just have so much extra mobility. Like it's actually kind of disgusting. And I'm starting to see signs and symptoms of the same things that present on my right side on my left side. And let me just break this down a little bit more cleanly. Like my right side now, most of the time, like I'm going to say 99% of the time is comfortable. Like I do not have resting pain. If I really think about it, maybe I'm like, it just feels different than my other side because I've had so much history there. But really I am able to do long runs. I'm able to do speed work. I'm able to lift. I'm able to live most of my life comfortably. It's like the upper echelon of things that would irritate it. Like maybe an international flight. I've done many successful, some have been sore. Like maybe upper ends of speed work, like VO2 max, 8 to 9 out of 10 RPE, uphill sprint intervals would probably piss it off if I didn't like progress up to that. So my hip is comfortable for most of the time. I do not have really any left-sided hip symptoms like pain. But what I am really noticing is that a lot of the clicking, I have like just a huge, like the clicking, I don't really get catching sometimes, but a lot of like the clicking and the popping, maybe some of the catching that has been present on the right side and has kind of just grown over the past couple of years is actually starting to show itself on the left side. And I've never had that symptom before. So I have seen this a lot. Like I have seen this a lot with my clients, with my patients, that if they have one side, the other side kind of starts to go after a period of time, whether it's post-surgery because they're using that side more, or if it's just kind of incidentally, they're like, yeah, this started on this side and then now it's starting on this side. And I would say the same trend is true of me. So in this podcast, I want to talk to you like live real time of what I'm doing and how I'm dealing with this for me specifically. So if this is your case, you're not like prone to maybe the same like mental spiral as you had with the other side. So I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that I'm doing to help me not freak out and also help me help myself not end up in the same spot where I went through, a year of just like having hip pain and like not being able to do the things that I wanted to do on my right side. So let's go through what I'm doing for my left side. Okay. So starting with the number one thing that I'm doing, the first thing that I'm doing, this is just mental. Like the mental aspect of it is actually just, it's absolutely massive. It's absolutely, honestly, like I would say for a lot of my clients, like the people that are coming into it and they just are not as mentally freaked out about it is honestly like a really, really wonderful predictor that they're going to just do better. Like people that are very highly focused and highly fixated and highly perseverating on the symptoms and everything all of the time. Like I think it's harder for them to feel better because they're just checking in so much. So this is what I'm specifically doing mentally. And I am just like, not allowing myself to spiral. And maybe that sounds like really simple and like maybe oversimplified, but so here is specifically how I'm helping myself not spiral. Number one, I don't even know which order I should hierarchically rank these two in, but number one, let's go with this one. I know that I have my team. Like I have not moved. I mean, I moved, but I'm not like terribly far from where I used to live. So I know that I have my team. Like I know that I have my physical therapist that knows me. She knows my anatomy, my findings. Like she can pull up my notes in her chart. Like she knows me and myself and like maybe my predisposition for this or not. And she can like use her past findings to help me with kind of where I'm at currently. Like having that person and not having to restart rapport, not having to restart like knowing what's going on is just so phenomenal. Like even just for myself, like as a practitioner or as a coach or whatever, like it's 10 times easier for me to work with someone who I've already worked with because I kind of just remember what's going on with them. And I can look back at my notes and be like, oh yeah, for sure. Like this was kind of what's going on. So then therefore, these things we can kind of build on it. This like we're not starting from ground one. So I have that with my PT. I also have my ortho. Like I have my physiatrist who's like a physical medicine and rehabilitation doctor. That is like the person that knows my hip and knows my history and knows who I am and all of the things. And like we already have that rapport. And I already kind of know like how he works and his predispositions and like his thoughts on running and like all of the different things. So I don't have to go through the trauma of like finding a new person and just being like, oh, well, now I get to like be subjected to their opinion because like honestly, going to the doctor is terrifying. Like, let me just say that right now. Like this is kind of a side tangent, but I really want to stitch this, it's like this reel that this guy did. He goes to the doctor and he's like explaining, he's probably like in his late 20s, early 30s. I don't know, maybe like 26. I don't even know. He looks around that age. 26 to like 32 is what his age looks like. And he's like, I went to the doctor and he was like, I was just telling them I'm just having chronic fatigue. Like I'm just tired literally all the time. And I just have like low energy. And like, even if I sleep really well, I like don't feel sufficient. And the doctor literally told me to like get my heart rate up in the morning. Like literal moment of silence for that. He said, just get my heart rate up in the morning. He's like, so you just want me to get up out of bed and like go get my heart rate up. And like, that's the thing that we're going to do. Like, we're no lab testing, like no testing thyroid. Like we're just going to, and I'm just like, this is the level sometimes that we have to deal with when we're just like working in the medical system of just having like really blanket statement approaches. Like it's hard to kind of cut through that. And like having your team that knows you is like so invaluable. And like, that is one thing that it's like, if it gets to that point, or even just like preemptively, like if I want to go to my PT and be like, hey, this is happening, like they know me and they know what they can do. And I just know that having that rapport is absolutely huge. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Phenomenal. That's number one. On the other side of the spectrum is like, I know what my body's kind of like makeup is. Like, even like maybe I have a leg up on this because I am a physical therapist and I know like the predispositions and all this stuff. But like, I know that I'm a hypermobile person that had like everywhere in my body that has like just a lot of mobility at my hips, both sides, and my back, both sides. And like, if this was, and the right side is actually worse than the left, but it's like, I kind of just know that like, if this is how I present it on one side, I may be at a predisposition for this to happening on the other side. And I know the pattern. Like sometimes this just does happen. I'm not saying that like this is going to happen to everyone, but I just know that this sometimes is a pattern that happens and it's not uncommon. And then therefore I'm like, okay, like I don't need to worry that like I am a zebra and not a horse, which I think is just like helpful, even should just kind of like slow the spiral mentally. And then the last thing is I have kind of also similarly like on the team, my run coach. Like if I am in a place where I'm like, you know what, like volume hasn't been super high, which my volume has been high, but like if I'm like, wow, I have this other sided thing and I do want to build volume and I want to do it conservatively and like all this stuff, like I know that he helps me so much with my build and my confidence for my past 250Ks that like I have him as a person to kind of like work with. And this is like another thing that has worked in the past that can like help me push forward if I'm feeling like mentally overwhelmed with maybe just like the mental tasks of like dealing with this. So I feel like mentally, just one, like knowing my body and knowing that like this is kind of, it sometimes happens to people, like it's just kind of consoling. And then number two, having my people and my team already know me. So then therefore, like, I think on this side of the spectrum, like I feel confident doing my own kind of like preemptive stability work and all that stuff, which I'll go into next. But like maybe at this point, if I didn't, I would be like, yeah, I'm going to go to my PT for a preemptive check-in and just be like, hey, this is kind of happening. What are the things that you think I should do to stay sharp on that side? So mentally, that is kind of how I'm dealing with this. And I just talk about this all the time. Like building your team is so invaluable because they're going to give you the confidence and like they're going to decrease that mental load. So it's no longer like all on you. So that's what I'm doing mentally. From a strength and stability standpoint, these are the things that I'm specifically doing. And again, like I'm going to reiterate, like I'm not having pain, but I just noticed that like if I'm like rolling over in bed, like I'm like sitting on my couch and I like go to roll over really anyways, I'll just have like a huge thud or like a huge pop or click into my hip. And it just like, it doesn't feel unstable, but it doesn't feel stiff. Like it's maybe this like micro instability, like where it just feels like it's like shifting and it's just like kind of disgusting. Or similarly, like classically, maybe if you're like opening up into rotation or like pivoting over your hip and you're pivoting over it and you're getting like clicking, that's something that like classically happens on my right side. Again, not painful, but it's also starting to happen on my left side, like more consistently. Or I'm just noticing like if I'm sitting in like positions, like if I'm laying on the couch and I have like, this is like very personal, but I have like one leg just completely straight and the other leg's kind of out in that like butterfly or figure four position. I'm like that like end range stretch is just like not comfortable for me. Like whereas previously in the past, I was like, yeah, it's fine. But like now I'm like, yeah, this just is not comfortable. So I'm just noticing that where I used to feel completely stiff and like taut and like fine on my left side, like those end range stretches, like the clicking and the popping is just not as comfortable for me. So I'm like, okay, what are the things that help me feel really good on my right side? Like, what are the things that help me feel tidy? And which for me, because I'm hypermobile, like having more of that stiffness feels good. So what are the things that I'm doing on my right side specifically? Just kind of going through that in my brain. I'll do like a handful of stability work, like stuff like, and honestly, like I'm not like crazily specific because I have a strength like plan that I follow that includes both strength and stability training, just kind of like for humans and runners as is. I don't need to be terribly specific because I do feel like I'm kind of checking off those boxes without needing to be terribly, terribly specific. If I was like in a severe flare up or just like having pain or really regressing, like I would be more specific. But again, like because I've kind of gotten out of the acute phase, even like the kind of return to run phase, and I'm just back into maintenance and training and all of this stuff, I am using a program that does strength and stability for me that is just normal. And I think it's really checking the boxes for me. But the main things that I like to think about are like stability work. Like this is stuff like your hip airplane. This is stuff like your unweighted, like single leg squats. This is stuff like your lunging with rotation, where you're just like going through the full range of motion and you're really having to work on the stability without a ton of load. Like I know that those things, or even like honestly, I'm going to say like plyometric hopping with like really excellent landing. Like I'm just working on the general control and stability of my hip without a ton of load. Maybe I'm working at like a 6 to a 7 out of 10 or beneath like rate of perceived exertion, as opposed to heavy lifting where I'm working at like an 8 to a 9 to a 10 out of 10 rate of perceived effort or rate of perceived exertion. So those things feel really good on my right side. So I'm incorporating some of those on my left side, like the plyometric skater hopping or like hip airplanes, or even like banded like abdominal rotation and twisting, or like side planks with rotation, like stuff like that. Just like feels good and it feels like it's helpful. So that stuff, I'm just making sure I'm incorporating that on my left side. The other thing that I know feels really good is like it is the heavy strength training, but it's like the unilateral heavy strength training with really good control. So for instance, like on my right side specifically, like I know know that I just like lack control and stability when I'm doing like a single leg RDL, or when I'm doing a single leg squat, or I'm doing a single leg squat with rotation, or I'm doing a rotational deadlift or stuff like that, versus when I'm doing it bilaterally, like a bilateral using both feet squat or heel raise or deadlift or whatever. So like it's important to me that with my lifting, I am working on both like the strength and stability at those higher ranges. And it just like I have to focus on my control a lot when I'm doing the single leg work. So I'm doing that stuff on my right, and then I'm also just ensuring that I'm doing it on my left. And another thing that I just know is like just feels really good on my left hip specifically is like making sure that I'm not just working in like the forwards and backwards plane. So I'm not just doing squats and deadlifts, even single leg. Like I am working on some of that rotation, like single leg squats with rotation, deadlift with rotation, lateral lunges, lateral step ups, like stuff that is engaging my hip to move in different ways that I really get to work on the range or the stability through the full range of motion. So if I'm parsing this out in like an example, maybe this would look like, okay, I'm doing like a single leg hip thrust on my right with weight, and that is like a heavy exercise, like 3 sets of 8, and I'm working pretty hard, like 8 out of 10 or rate of perceived effort. Doing the same thing on my left side, like that's going to feel really good for my strength and my control, and I'm just making sure that my form looks really good, like my hips not dropping down, I'm not like over squeezing on the top, stuff like that. And then maybe I'm finishing that exercise session with, and maybe I'm doing like a bilateral squat also, just because I want to work on general strength. And then maybe I'm like finishing that session with something like, a banded abdominal rotation where like there's a band coming and I'm like rotating from side to side, like a chop or a lift or something like that. And that's kind of working on some of the stability in my hips and core. And then maybe I'm focusing on like a single leg step up with rotation on a Bosu ball, where it's like I'm working on the stability through the full range of motion of my right and left side. And it's not like under a ton of load, but I'm just like really having to focus on like my balance and control as I'm going through those things. And then maybe I'm ending with like a plyometric single leg hop where I'm working on that control at faster speeds. Like I would say for me personally, like that is an extremely well-rounded plan that's kind of checking the boxes anyway of like the things that I need to be working on as a runner specifically, and the things that I need specific to my hip. And I know that was like kind of a lot, but I want to say like in general, simplifying this even more in general, when I'm thinking about a good strength plan for runners, I want to be doing something going from like, let's go from top to bottom. Like I want to be working on some plyometric control or power. Like I want to have some form of plyometrics that I'm like jumping and having to like work on landing at faster speeds, because that is required of me when I'm running. Going down from there, I want something I'm working on strength. Like I'm actually lifting heavy weights, 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 out of 10 rate of perceived effort with really good form. I want some unilateral and some bilateral, meaning like 1 leg and 2 leg lifts. And then going under that, I don't really need a ton of endurance work, but I can kind of couple like maybe endurance and then like mobility, stability, and control all in one. So like I'm working on stuff like for me personally, like maybe 3 sets of 15 to 20 of that like Bosu step up, where I'm having to work on my balance and coordination for a long period of time to mimic the endurance and control demands that I need for running. 3 sets of 10 is not good enough. Okay. Like if someone's only telling you 3 sets of 10, run the other way. And then if someone's like a stiffer person, this is not me, but like maybe they're just really stiff into hip internal rotation. Like maybe instead of that control work, maybe they're working more on like a mobilization exercise, like maybe a hip airplane where they're really focusing on getting into end range and like ensuring that they have a ton of mobility or more mobility into their hips so that they're not like banging into the joint when they're doing X, Y, and Z. So really like what I'm saying is that like the stuff that I'm doing is just doing what I have been doing. But I think the things that I'm adding is just making sure that I am doing unilateral or single leg lifts. And then I'm doing some hip like strength training and kind of endurance control training in different directions, like the rotational and lateral work. And then I'm doing some plyometrics just to like increase the stability and like uptrain that at my hip joint, because I'm noticing like some more laxity with the popping and the clicking and all of that stuff. So I think the nice thing is that like when you know what you're doing and you're like I know what I need to do to strength train and like maintain the stuff for my hip and for my body. Like, you don't have to drastically change things, but I'm just like mentally checking in and being like, okay, like, let me just make sure that I'm doing those things, specifically too, if I'm like building volume, which I am now. I'm actually going to run a half marathon in about a little bit more than a month. Trail half, honestly, just like I'm not like racing terribly hard, but like I just wanted something to like work to build my volume towards, just in a season of like being crazy and like not really having a lot of time to like specifically train for an ultra. I just wanted to have something to work for my volume towards, and like I don't want to get injured like while I'm, building volume, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm doing for the strength and stability piece. I have another podcast titled like the hip hierarchy. Are you training in the right order for your hip? If you guys want to go more in depth on that, that is a great episode that will like really break down those things, but like just kind of like scratching the surface of like what I'm doing to maintain from a strength and stability standpoint. Okay. And then the last thing that I'm working on, which honestly, like maybe we're not giving this area of modification enough credit, but like it's a huge thing that I talk about with my clients. And like, maybe I should talk about this more. Let me know if I should talk about this more. And I'm just going to call it like positional, like just like the positions that I'm putting my body in throughout the day. I'm just kind of like being mindful of how I'm like moving through space through these couple of things. And like, I don't feel like this is the stuff that is talked about when you're in your like MRI debriefing session. I don't feel like this is the stuff that's talked about, honestly, like in a lot of physical therapy offices. And like, I am crazy about this stuff because it's just like, it's helped me so much and it's helped my clients so much that like every piece is like so ingrained into helping you get better. Like there's so many things that we can think about in helping you get better. And I'm like, if we could just get like gains here and gains here and gains here, then like you're going to feel so much better overall. So as I'm just kind of floating around the topic, let me talk about this specifically. So the biggest things that I noticed with my left hip specifically is like just the grossness of like that rotation, like those pivots over the left side. Like I'm getting a lot more clicking and like popping, which is gross. And then also like if I'm sitting down or like laying down and I'm like rolling and rotating, I'm just getting more like thunks and like pops and clicks and catches into that hip. And it's just like generally disgusting. And then like those end range kind of stretches are just not comfortable for me. So let me just kind of walk through what I'm doing. If I'm like laying on the couch and I'm like rolling over, or I'm like laying in bed and I'm like rolling over, instead of just like, okay, this honestly just sounds crazy, but like instead of just like rolling over and like flinging myself, I'm just trying to be a little bit more like the log roll. Like I don't know if you guys have ever heard the log roll, seen the log roll, but it's like it's really popular like post back surgery, even post hip surgery, or like postpartum, where it's like your shoulders and your hips are connected, and instead of like having your knees go first and then your shoulders go first, you're kind of just like moving sequentially over, where it's like your shoulders and your knees are stacked together. I'm not like as robotic, but I'm just trying to not like fling myself over. I mean, it's fine if I do, but I just noticed like, I know if I'm like putting my body at these end ranges while I'm like rolling over and all of this stuff, I know I'm going to get the click or the thud. And it's just honestly, it's fine if it happens. It's just kind of gross. So I'm just trying to be like, okay, like I'm just going to roll over like with the two things together, just so I'm like avoiding that. Honestly, probably good about that. Like 40% of the time. So just a quick mental note that I'm like thinking of. And I also know that if I'm laying on a compliant surface, like a bed or a couch, like I'm really at more end ranges of motion because I'm not laying on something super hard. If you think of like your kind of ligaments as like your ligaments in your joints as like Play-Doh, if I'm like sitting on a firm surface, it's going to stay stuck and like taut and hard. But if I'm laying on a compliant surface, it's going to like it's going to attenuate or like kind of droop into those ways. And it's like there's just more stretch to that Play-Doh, similar to my ligaments. Like when I'm going to turn, if I'm stretched and I'm kind of at those end ranges, when I go to pivot and turn, maybe there's going to be more clicking, popping, catching. So honestly, not crazy about it. Like I'm not going crazy about it, but if I think about it, that's what's happening. That's probably the least important thing that I'm doing. So that's the least important. So do not get crazy on that. The next thing that I'm thinking about specifically is like, okay, these two kind of things go together, but like if I'm like laying on the couch, again, this is just like all about me, just like laying on the couch. If I'm laying on the couch and like, again, my legs are out, like one leg straight and like the other's like in that kind of like externally rotated kind of like figure four position, it's just like not comfortable for my leg to be like all the way hanging out to the ground. Like I can just feel like it just feels like my joint is like going to pop out of the socket. So honestly, like the easiest thing that I'm doing is just like propping up a pillow underneath my knee. So it's like not having to hang out at end range and just like feel more stretched after I'm like done reading or like done watching TV or whatever. Similarly, if I'm like, I don't know, just like sitting into or similarly, if I'm laying on my side and I'm like reading or watching TV or whatever, I'm like just putting a pillow in between my knees so my legs aren't coming into as much internal rotation and like not being at that kind of like stretched position throughout the end of the range. And then one of the last things that I'll often tell with like my clients if they're traveling or whatever, is like if I'm traveling and I'm laying on like a super compliant or like soft bed, I'll notice that like I'll almost wake up stiffer because it's like, again, instead of like my ligaments being held up super taut, they're like kind of dripping like that Play-Doh, and it's like they're getting stretched over time into like the looseness or the compliancy of the bed or whatever. So I'll put like a pillow underneath my side. So my side is supported and then my hips are supported. So I'm staying a little bit more into that relative neutral. And like, honestly, it's just these very, very simple, minute things of the day, but it just is allowing me to not have any of that like stiffness or instability or like feelings of like catching or clicking when I'm going to stand up. And like, again, these things are so minute and so small, but like they just make a little bit of a difference. And it just makes me feel a lot better when I'm like getting up or when I'm, in those positions or whatever. So the biggest thing that I'm doing mentally, I know that I have my team and I am just knowing that this is really like a common pattern with some people. Like if it hasn't happened to you, it's not going to happen. I don't know. Maybe it will, but like, I'm not saying it's going to. I just know that this is sometimes a common pattern and it's okay. And I am okay to check in with my team if I need to. Number two, focusing on strength and stability, just making sure that I'm moving through the full range of motion with both forwards, lateral, and rotational motions, focusing on the stability of my hip through all of those ranges of motions. And I'm doing it at both like 3 sets of 20, lighter endurance, kind of mobility, stability, control. And then I'm doing it also at like the heavier strength training dosages as well, because I can tolerate all of those things. And then just positional. I'm just being mindful. Like if I'm laying and my legs are kind of held at end range of motion, I'm just like propping them up. Or if I'm like on a very compliant surface and I know that I might be a little bit more stretched throughout the period of time, again, just propping like my side or my hips up. This could also be said, this isn't really me specifically, but like this is something I work on with my clients if they have to like sit for long periods of time for work or go on really long road trips or drives or plane rides. Like this is a huge thing that we check in on just to make sure that they're not like starting from a painful or down position and then going into their runs or races or whatever it is. And honestly, like, I hope that this podcast just like sheds some light that like, even though I like post about the hip, I'm a physical therapist, I'm a run coach, I'm all the things, like I'm obsessed with the hip, like you could do all the right things and like still these things can happen. Like I have literally for the last like 3.5 years have just done my due diligence of like working hard on my strength training, not increasing my mileage, like, crazy ebbs and flows in my mileage, just being consistent, like running the races, enjoying my time, doing all the things. And like, yeah, this has still happened to me. And like, it's okay, like it is totally fine. Like as I'm getting older, there are going to be things that are going to be sore and are going to be uncomfortable, but it's just like important for us to know that if we have these like ebbs and flows in life, we just need to know like what are the things that we can do to really overcome this. And that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. And I want to say like one of the biggest changes and one of the coolest lessons that I've seen in myself and with my clients also is that like oftentimes it's not just like one thing. Like it's not just me. Like, let's say I was like really not doing well and things were really starting to not feel great. It's like not just me spiraling mentally that is like making my pain feel worse. Or it's not just me like not doing my strength and stability exercises in the appropriate way or timing and dosage and all of things. And it's not just me like sitting in these different positions or not sitting in these different positions. Like it really can be cumulative. It can be all of these different things. And that's like why I love working with my clients in my program, because it's not just like, oh, we're just doing exercise or we're just doing running or we're just doing mental. Like it's kind of the culmination of all of them. And it's like these little things that come together for the perfect recipe that like allow Sarah to hit her goal or allow like Katie or Lee or Sarah or whatever, like whatever their names are. Like it's just these perfect compact programs that are fit into their lifestyle and for their hip. And honestly, like one of my clients last week, she was like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like I literally, like, she's like, I learned that I just can't do really hard things back to back days. Like, she was like, I can't go to like an Orange Theory class and then do my long run the next day, or I can't do like a really intense new Pilates class and then do like my really, my like longest run of the week the next day. She's like, I know that I can do them both, but she's like, my body just responds the best when it's like I do one of those one day and then I have at least a day off, do something different, and then do one of those things the other days. And she was like, literally in the past, I would have just blamed all of my hip pain on a run or a lift or a specific exercise. But she's like, I just have learned that it's like the accumulation of different things in specific to me, and kind of like playing with those circumstances to allow myself to have the best outcomes. And I was like, yes, like this is huge. And the nice thing is like, as you know what works best for you and you kind of build tolerance to these things over time, you build tolerance and you become more indestructible. And that's how I was able to go from a half marathon to a 50K to another 50K to now just kind of honestly being able to run not as much as I want, like whenever I want, but like, I mean, I really can build volume and strength train. And like, I don't really double take. I don't really overthink what I need to do throughout the week because I just know the general principles and there's not a lot of rules that I need to follow. So if you're like, oh my gosh, like I want a plan that's like, not just specific to me, like run and strength wise, but it's going to help like the mental piece. It's going to help the cumulative stress. It's going to help like the positional loading. It's going to talk about travel. It's going to talk about flare ups, all of this stuff. I would love to chat with you about the Empower Hip program. We are going to be opening up enrollment. The faster you act, like the more benefits you're going to get, which is going to be wonderful and amazing. I will drop the link for that in the show notes. There's a quick application. It's like a 5-question application. And that is going to direct you directly to my free booking calendar where you can book a call with me and see if this program is going to be specific to you. On these strategy calls, like I'm making it specific to you. I'm not just saying like, this is what the program is. Like, I want to see if this program is a good fit. And honestly, guys, like if it's not a good fit, more times than not, I'm like, hey, I actually don't think you're ready for this. Or I think that you would do better with X, Y, or Z. I'm like helping that person find their next step faster every cohort as I do it. So I would hop on the bandwagon as fast as you can, fill out the application if you're like, wow, I think this might be for me. And I will drop that in the show notes. And I hope today's episode was helpful and I look forward to chatting with you soon.